Isaac Sarason was a skilled hacker employed by British Telecom-Sprint. Isaac Sarason was a fool. When his health failed, instead of dealing with the problem, he ran. In his wake, he left bodies and ruined lives. Until finally, his problems overtook him in the form of the mysterious Firmware project. Now, it is months later. The scions of Isaac have become a people whose numbers challenge the stars of the sky. It is into this world of the city we now turn. A world of 1,000,000 experiences. 100 million wonders. All one needs to do is to cross the street and head down an alley. And there will be another world. Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Keylogger, the third installment in the Firmware Pentology by Colbytrax. That's me. Hello from the 313. It has been an insane week in the Big D. It all started last week, Wednesday. I received a call for an overnight help desk technician position. It came out of the blue. Do you want a job paying X? Can you work overnight? Would you like a less than 4-mile commute in a straight line with no turns? Good. I'll get back to you by the end of the day. That was Wednesday. No promised email. No promised call. Okay. They got busy. People get busy at companies. Thursday, no phone call. No email. It was getting dark and depressing about the Redford domain. Friday was cranky. Friday was angry. Friday made me doubt myself. So, I looked up the number the recruiter called me on. I Googled it. Found out it was a dedicated line. I stared at my phone for 10 minutes. I said if I didn't call, I would hate myself forever. And I still didn't call. 15 minutes passed. I was shaking, kind of unsure, but I hit the button and waited. And the recruiter's voice came on the line, and once I reminded her who I was and what I was calling about, I got a, "What? We didn't get back to you? Okay, let me contact the managers. Actually, could you come in on Monday? I'll get it arranged. I'll get some managers in a room for you." Wow, that was insane. I said, yes. I was called back a bit later while I was mowing the lawn and was told the interview was shifted forward like an hour, which is cool. I said, no problem. I verified the email, everything. It was cool. Now I had a weekend to sweat it out, which wasn't too bad. I kind of relaxed. I only had a firing squad on Monday. It wouldn't be too bad. Monday came. I dressed up. Dress pants, button-up shirt, a blue one with lines, and a jacket. And I went to the place. I put my phone on airplane mode, so I wouldn't want to be rude. It was a good thing I did, as G, my spouse, decided to text me good luck right after the interview had started. But I didn't know that till later. I was led into a conference room, left to stew in my own juices. Then a manager entered, and another, and another, and an assistant to a manager. I was informed they were hiring for multiple projects, and to save time, 3 different projects were being represented by 4 different people. Then there was a blur of questions as one after another they shot questions at me. But a pattern emerged. They weren't asking bullshit questions like, "Why do you want to work here?" "Because I need a paycheck." Or "Where do you see yourself in 3 years?" "With a job." Or "Tell me about the hardest thing you ever did and why you did what you did." No, that's personal. No, 1,000 times no. They wanted to know why I decided IT was better than pursuing a career in stats-based jobs. I told them I have always told people to do the thing they would break rules to do. To sneak their dog into bed even though mom told them no. To do that which they did without being asked as a job. And the truth be told, I don't do statistics as a hobby. I do scripts and websites and silly little graphics exercises for fun. And I help people with their IT problems even when they wish I would just leave them alone. And that was why I was going the way I was going. And when I was asked why I didn't know math-heavy programming languages, like C++, but I didn't know like Python and PHP and SQL, JavaScript and HTML, I told them my math program didn't believe in teaching programming. So I had to teach myself via Google searches. That might have been the thing. That might have been what it was. So I went home. I had no idea. I just did the interview. It lasted half the time it was supposed to, which usually I was told if it only lasts half the time, it means it wasn't good. So I didn't know what to think. So I shook hands with the guy on the way out, and I took off. And I hoped it was good enough. I remembered that my phone was on airplane mode as I changed out of my dress clothes. I received my spouse's good luck message, which was sent a minute after I began my interview, and laughed. And she told me the story about how she sent the message and realized I was actually in my interview and just prayed I had everything on airplane mode. And I'm glad I did. And then there was a message from a recruiter recorded 12 minutes after my interview ended. 12 minutes. That's about the time it takes me to drive to work. Telling me I gave an awesome interview and that I needed to sign a bit of background check paperwork before they could offer me a job in 5 to 10 days. So I printed it, I signed it, I scanned it, I sent it back. And the next day, at about 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, they made me an offer above the rate I had been quoted for the position. I was in shock. And when asked if I could start work at Wednesday at 9 a.m., I said yes. So yes, on Wednesday at 9 a.m., I started a new job in a new field, doing something I've never done before, and having a blast. I'll tell you about the place later. But right now, I think it's time we return to the strange affair of Sam Noir in the case of the assassin which wasn't there, in the final installment of 01-11-00, or as we like to call it, episode 67 of Firmware Keylogger. The bubble of no information continued south down the street less than 100 yards and then stabilized. When I said the bubble moved less than 100 yards south, what I meant was that the spot I perceived as the dead center of the bubble was stopped at a point which aligned with roughly 44 Brompton Road. The bubble solidified, growing tighter and tighter. I watched the queue at Long Island Panopticon. The outage on Brompton Road was approaching the top of the list. This was strange. My countdown to reactivation timers were overdue. They had stopped counting down and were now counting up. 30 seconds late. The out-of-service cameras on Brompton Road were 3 slots from the top of the queue. 40 seconds late. The offline cameras were 2 slots from the top. 53 seconds late. They were in the top slots. At 54 seconds, every camera in the neighborhood reactivated. I looked around the neighborhood and noted the thin remnants of snow and the stick-like appearance of the trees which decorated this ancient neighborhood of mid-20th century neoclassical registry of historical houses. The entire neighborhood supposedly looked as it did in the century before the creation of the city, before the charter which defined the goals and aspirations of a single family written across a neo-city state. Where did they find vinyl siding and triple-paned Energy Star windows? I had to laugh. Who paid good money to throw more money at a money pit? A home which ended up costing the owner thousands of joules extra every year in heating, cooling, and maintenance just to keep a completely useless, out-of-date status symbol on a registry of historic homes? What did it matter? This neighborhood wasn't important. What was important was where the mystery woman had disappeared to. How had she disappeared? I scanned the neighborhood, waiting for something to happen. Would I be lucky enough to spot our target in the open? I didn't think I would. One of the Noirs messaged me. Our wireless phone had gone active at 44 Brompton Road. It had sent 2 words in text. Paradise lost. And then shut down again. Another Noir ran the background on the phone account and discovered the phone had been sold at the Lille Something convenience store on the corner of Mill and River Street in Port Dickinson at the last train stop before BGM. It was probably a coincidence. But then the case lot that phone came from had all been sold, and 20 of the 24 units in the case had been activated once and never used. The other 4 had been used once to send a 2-word text. There was a chicken dinner, a Texan funeral, a monk fries, and finally, whisper thin. All nonsense. The only interesting bit was that each use preceded by less than 3 hours an unsolved homicide. Homicides which occurred within 200 yards of the spot at which the mysterious messages originated. Interesting enough, the phone which sent whisper thin had been used on the day Rama died in his building overlooking an alley beside Washington Square Park. There were too many threads coming together for it to be coincidence. We watched the neighborhood around Adelphi University for another half hour before the queue at Long Island Panopticon grew to 36 service calls ready and waiting. When the 44th call entered the queue, the cameras on the neighborhood began their reset dance. The blob of no sight moved across the backyard of someone known as Janan Irgarten and onto the campus proper. I watched as the blob stopped in Post Hall, the cameras pulling in tight around a tomb of an office belonging to the same Janan Irgarten. There was one thing I knew for sure. I was glad I was not this mysterious Janan Irgarten. One of my noirs informed me that the queue was cleared up to the cameras knocked out by our mysterious team. The cameras all came live again, and there was a repeat of the same text as before. Paradise Lost was sent again, and again the queue increased in length. At 50 cameras in queue at Long Island Panopticon, our target began moving again. She moved off campus to the north. I had expected her to backtrack to the Blue Line. Instead, she headed east toward the Long Island Railroad Station at Garden City. This could be the break I needed. Either the intelligence who oversaw our mystery woman was omnipotent, and nothing we did would matter, or there was a limit to her power. As the outages in the video system started at a train station, could I tender the hope that the interruptions would end at one as well? I knew the cameras would be down for 5 minutes after the intervention of the phantom intelligence. I planned accordingly. I sent the noirs out along the lines and into the streets surrounding the station. I had them run every face within 10 minutes of the station through facial recognition. I wanted to know which face didn't belong. For 15 tense minutes, I listened as my team of forked noirs poured over cameras. I smiled as the bubble of no information approached the Garden City station. We had a list of everyone who could possibly be in the station. The one who wasn't on our list would be the one we were stalking. I waited and watched as the zone of no cameras became narrower and narrower. I checked the schedule. We had time. The zone would fade before the next train. When the final camera, the one tracking the main concourse of the station, went back online, I discovered my assumptions were wrong. It wasn't a mysterious woman I was tracking. It was a man in a fashionable coat sporting a pillbox hat. I saw him walk out of the men's room. I contacted the Noirs. They confirmed he hadn't existed in their local searches until the cameras came back on at the Long Island Railroad Garden City station. The confirmation of identity passed 6 nines when a search of the metadata at the Lil Something convenience store in Port Dickinson showed him buying a sandwich and a beer. The search of transit records showed him on the B train as it pulled into the West 4th Street station on the day of the snow apocalypse. He was there on the day I assumed Rama died. Damn it! He had been less than a block away when the metadata showed the cameras stopped recording. I had him dead to rights in a metal box hurtling across the city, and he was going to get away with it. Killing Rama, being part of Hanger, being a bad guy. It was such a shame. Too many coincidences to allow him to live. I looked around the Hempstead branch train. I saw the infant in the stroller. I saw the father hovering over his purple-clad boy as he smiled at his wife as she hovered protectively nearby. I saw the lovers, 2 boys who'd never become men. I saw the businesswomen and their husbands riding together from the shopping or the doctors or wherever it was that they came from. I saw the life of the young conductor, her wife at home with their girls. The gifts she'd bought on her break, hidden beneath her seat, waiting for her to return home to her 2 little angels. It was a shame they had to die. But he'd killed so many, so very many. I locked the conductor out of the controls. I blocked the ports the Long Island Railroad would access when they realized they had lost control of their Hampstead branch train. I felt them sending their signals. I bounced them back as if there had been a complete failure of the onboard operating system. No one need know the system had been compromised. They didn't deserve the warning. We passed Nassau Boulevard without slowing. Our speed approached the maximum limit of the onboard governor as we blew past Stewart Manor. I hadn't yet overcome the onboard governor when we hit the curve at Floral Park. Sensors told me we'd almost flipped, but we hadn't. I was disappointed. I gave up on the governor and looked ahead for some other way to kill the train. Ahead, just past the Bellerose station, there was a curve. But it wasn't tight enough, not enough to throw the train from the tracks. But there was a siding on the curve. A siding which held all the supplies and equipment a busy rail system needed to remain operational. Enough supplies to bring the Hempstead branch train with its 276 innocent passengers and 1 guilty one to a sudden, complete, and fatal stop. I ordered my forked colleagues to throw the switch. I wanted them to fake a signal failure, a failure which would send my train into the parked railway supplies. Was that too much to ask? They balked. They pled for the lives of the passengers. They used the life of the mother. They used the life of the infant. I had made my decision. Why wouldn't they shut up? They were trying to stall me. They were trying to get me to miss my chance. That wouldn't and couldn't happen. I fumbled through the switching software of the Long Island Railroad and through a dozen switches. One was the one I wanted. The other 11 either proved fatal for someone, or some person was able to react in time and save the day. What did I care if the casualty figures climbed to the mid-4 digits? It just didn't matter, because this bastard, this assassin, this tool of Hanker would be dead. I lost connection as the train slammed into several hundred tons of track, concrete, and heavy equipment. I know from the news that there were 278 bodies pulled from the wreck of the Hempstead Branch train. I spotted his image in the city's official death record and learned everything I could about him. I also refused to renew the forks of myself. I let them all perish over the next half day and listened to them plead for their miserable existences. I then made a dozen new versions of myself and set them loose to continue the hunt for Hanker. They were out there. I just knew it, and I didn't think I would get so lucky again. That's why I needed Yale and her apocalyptic brothers. It would never be so easy again. At times, I regretted tipping my hand early, but most times I didn't. The first death served as a warning, and warnings rarely increased preparedness. But they did increase terror. And wasn't that the best part of destroying something as evil as Hanker? Knowing I had terrified a beast which made its living off of spreading fear and terror gave the whole business a touch of irony I found very enjoyable. My alarm went off, startling me. I slipped back through my memories again to a simpler time, a simpler place. A place I could never return to. It was Yale's alarm. Had something happened to my Yale? No. She had just had a nightmare. She needed to be reassured nothing bad would happen to her or Daddy before returning to sleep. I stood over her and whispered to her as she slept, as if it were the only truth of the world. No one will ever hurt you. You are Daddy's singular joy, and nothing bad will ever happen to you. I promise you that. Now isn't that just a good father, protecting his little baby Yale from all the bad things in the world? Well, I was going to come up with something snarky and evil, but in between, when I was recording this, between the intro and the recording, and now the outro, I had to take the trash out. And so I went outside, and G brought out the trash too that needed to be taken out, so we took them out to the curb, and we came back, and there was a beautiful, beautiful moon coming up, and full moon shining through the trees. It was beautiful. Then we looked up, and there was a bat circling the large tree, like 2 houses down, just circling around, and you could see it diving and grabbing insects. It was just incredible. And suddenly Gwen goes, "What's that?" And we looked over, and floating less than 5 feet from us, right 4 feet off the ground, was a firefly. And we were able to get close enough that we could actually move around it and see it against the sky and against the side of the house and make out its shape and watch it glow. And it was just incredible. And so I had to share that with you. I just thought it would be incredible. And I hope you enjoyed that, because that's what life is little unexpected moments of joy that come in the midst of places you don't expect to find them. Well, be sure to join me next week for the first installment of 01-11-01, or as I like to call it, Inari's Adventures in Protocol and Negotiations with the Kai Guy, or as you will know it, Episode 68. Firmware Keylogger is the 3rd book in the Firmware Pentology. Firmware Hijacked, Proxy, and Keylogger are all available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Smashwords. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. Complete audiobook versions of Firmware Hijacked, Proxy, and Keylogger are available for download through our shop as well. The audiobooks are intro and outro-free versions of the stories you hear every week, assembled into audio CD-length MP3s for easy burning to old media. If you're listening in the distant future, that means you've heard multiple messages of me telling everyone that, until August, there is no keylogger in the store. But hey, imagine that. Me not having something ready until something's over. Well, if you don't need any stuff but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located somewhere on the website. I think I left it above the door this time, but you gotta look for it. Maybe check under the mat. Maybe check above the door. I would say check behind the dog. But hey, that's that. If you roast coffee, you are a saint. If you don't, then find someone who does, because their Java will knock your socks off. If you'd like to support us indirectly, just click on any of the Amazon ads. There's one on our site. Actually, there's 2 or 3, because if you link on any of the books, there's an Amazon link as well. And then do your normal Amazon shopping. A portion of your purchase will come to us, and only Amazon will feel the pinch. I would like to take this time to thank archive.org for file hosting. We couldn't do it without you. Firmware Keylogger is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you receive this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcasts, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. I have a horrible joke I've been making for months right here. I do mostly Twitter, so if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. If you want a never-ending stream of DIY and dog photos, check out my Instagram at Colbytrax, or look me up on Facebook at Colby, first name, Trax, last name. And if you'd like to drop me an email, just send me an email to Colbytrax@Colbyjack.net. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful week, and remember to always be fabulous. No, 1,000 times no. I'd rather see my lifeblood spillin'. I'll sing anything, even God Save the Queen, but I just won't sing any Bob Dylan.